Okay, welcome everybody. This is our December 7th, 2023 Walla Municipal Advisory Council meeting. And we'll start off by introducing everybody, or they can introduce themselves if they'd like. Starting on the left here, we have
Melissa Finley.
Dan Lewis.
Dave Spark. Don Hess.
Robert Youngling.
Zach Hayward.
Kevin Evans.
And do we have anybody in the audience yet? Other than, well, Henry will join us here in a minute, but he's planning on attending.
And we have the gentleman in the audience.
And then, would you like to introduce yourself, Michael?
Daniel Jackson.
Okay. And then we have Mary Mulbert, and online on Zoom, we have Ted Williams, our supervisor. Okay. Any announcements? Are you out there, Henry?
No. No, it doesn't look like he's on.
Okay. Who is anybody gonna take minutes tonight? We'll rely on the recording then.
Looks like Don's got a pretty good setup with the mics and everything, so if we're recording it, then
Okay.
Yeah, well, let's hope it works. I mean, it appears to be working, but this is our first trial.
Okay, while we're waiting for Henry, I just wanted to mention that the agenda that I did, the format was kept relatively the same. Yet after law enforcement report, I think we'll need to move along as quickly and concisely as possible. Because we've got a lot to cover. We'll likely need as much time as possible for items 9 and 12. So if there's nothing urgent to report under committee reports and other items, I'd suggest, or I'll suggest, that we just keep the meeting moving, okay?
Can everybody see and hear me now?
There we go.
yes,
We can.
Can you hear us?
Sorry
okay?
about that.
Henry, can you hear us okay?
I can, yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay.
So we
So,
were,
yeah,
you have an announcement for us, right, Henry?
I do. Yeah, so by way of explanation, I'm not there because I almost certainly have RSV, and I do not want to give any of you RSV. I just have the stuffy nose. I'm feeling otherwise fine, but given the context that somebody at my kid's school had that, and I'm 90% sure my son also had it, I probably have it, and I don't want to give it to y'all. So I'm attending under the Just Cause exemption under the Brown Act, which says up to twice a year for reasons of of various things, including communicable illness. You can attend remotely, even under current policy. So that's me.
Well, thanks for not sharing. So Henry, will you be able to vote and everything?
Yeah, I'm a full participant. Again, I can only do this twice in a calendar year. I have not yet done it in this calendar year, so it's not a problem. But yeah, under the Just Cause. So if I were just like out of town traveling, which was the last time I couldn't make a meeting, you're not allowed to go for that reason. But if it's for a communicable illness, then you can. And the other thing I need to state is there's nobody there's nobody at all, but nobody over the age of 18 in the room with me.
Okay, Henry, we thank you for your announcement and explanation on that matter.
Yeah, sorry, I wish I could be there with y'all. I would much prefer it, but I would feel pretty bad.
Okay. Then let's move on to our consent agenda. We have 2 items under A. We have the approval of the minutes from October 5th, 2023 with the corrections. And then we have the meeting minutes from November 2nd, 2023. Who's first?
David.
David.
We'll defer to Ken.
Okay,
I just have a question. In looking at the agenda, it says October 5th, 2023 minutes with corrections. I don't recall getting an email on what those corrections might be. So if the chair could go through those, so we would know what changes have been made, because I know the public and at least I haven't received those changes, and they're not posted on the website. So that's my question.
okay,
They were emailed around for.
I have them here, hang
6th
on.
or 7th of November.
I got them.
Immediately and sent out with not only the minutes, but also the sheets of corrections. There were 2 sheets.
There were 2 PDFs that were sent, yeah.
Yes, 2 PDFs.
So did you not all get that?
No,
It was sent to everyone? No? Okay.
Sent out like immediately before I even started the minutes for
Right.
November. I did those first.
So we did do the September 7th meeting minutes and approve those at our November 2nd meeting, I recall. We did those in session.
oh, I do have it. My apologies.
That's.
There's actually a 1-page correction sheet.
Yeah,
For the 7th, and then I had to lower the point on the print because there were like 13 corrections to, then October. So, that had not been done. And, so it is also one sheet.
so you haven't seen him yet, Dan? Have you seen him, David?
Yes.
How about you, Don?
No.
You haven't seen him, Kevin?
I have it in front of me if you want me to read it.
I'm seeing them for the first time right now. I did get the acknowledgement.
I'd want to say that instead of doing all that work right now,
6th, I believe.
I mean, yeah, we can read them, but
Yeah, November 6th.
I don't want to get into a lengthy thing with meeting minutes if everybody hasn't read them yet.
Correct. May I offer one additional change? Wow, that's great. I can hear myself, got a monitor going. Mary, I had asked you to make a change in section.
I did,
No, you did not. 7, sub C. First sentence of my commentary where Caltrans W/ask MCOG get $1.2 million RTP grant. I asked you to exchange the word get for, which is grammatically correct. You did not make that change. Would you please do so?
it was changed in the minute, but it was not changed in the correction.
Okay, so it looks like we gotta straighten this out. So,
Look at the minutes though, and see that it has been done. Cause I do believe I remember doing it to the minutes.
okay, Chair, may I make a recommendation related to the minutes from October 5th?
Sure.
I would ask that a simply corrected version that shows changes in strikeout, underlined, standard editorial mode, be distributed one more time to all members. And
Okay.
then this item be agendized at our next monthly meeting for
Okay,
conclusion.
let's do that. And then we don't have to go through I want everybody to have read it and be ready to vote on it. That's what we should be doing. So,
Correct.
okay, so should we take a motion? Yeah,
Well, sorry, before we make a motion, I do want to, on the minutes, I think that one of the issues that's coming up that leads to this sort of continuing controversy about details in the minutes is Like I just don't. I think there's too much in the minutes. The minutes usually I expect minutes to mostly be here are the issues that were discussed and the actions that were taken and who voted what on each of those. But the whole having a long, lengthy list of what everybody said, I just don't really think that's what the minutes are for. I realize that's how it's been done for a long time, but it's just not what I usually see in minutes from other things. So I don't know, since it's become sort of a sticky point, I wonder if that's something that we really want to keep doing.
May I have the floor, Robert?
Melissa,
According to Robert's rules of order, the minutes are only supposed to be exactly what he said. This, what was discussed, what actions were taken, who voted, and that's it. No, he said, she said, is supposed to be involved in the minutes. It's just not part of the minutes.
And Robert, I would concur with what Henry and Melissa said. I think in January, we went through that practice with Mary, where she submitted both action minutes and then very detailed minutes and gave us a chance to kind of select which route we wanted to go. And I think the council at that time opted for just action minutes, so we didn't worry about all the dialogue and having Mary have to produce 10 pages of minutes for us to go through, plus numerous corrections. So I think agreeing with Henry and Melissa, maybe we should have that direction as we move forward, is just to have action minutes.
And if you really wanted to have minutes go back the way it was, because the small column of discussion is not enough room for all of what everybody said. And it's been through that way since August of this year, when it went from 2 pages to 5 to now 8 or 9.
Yeah.
right.
And I recommend instead of 8 or 9 to do like 6 of regular minutes if you want all the huge discussion.
And I think people could look at it online if they really want to hear the conversations on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm totally in agreement with what everybody's saying here. If we want to hear the detail of a certain item on the agenda, we need to take it upon ourselves to go to the recording and listen to it. That's why we've got all this equipment now in place, the better speakers and everything, better microphones. And we should stick with what we talked about earlier in the year, which was going to action minutes. But now that we have these in front of us and we've had a request to change one item on here, maybe we should take a motion to table these and then have them come back one more time, since they have been written painstakingly and in detail.
Yeah.
And maybe we can have a motion on that.
I'd like to make a further point, if I may.
Okay,
Let's have these turned into action minutes and just cut out all that.
well, it incurs more labor, I'm thinking, and
Yeah.
do we want to do that? We're under strict guidelines.
It's just that those minutes do not adhere to Robert's rule of order of the going on and on about who said what. And if we're going to buy Robert's rules of order, it should just be action minutes. It's just easy. It's just editing out everything everyone said.
Yeah, okay, I do hear you there. What does the rest of the council think on that? I mean, we're kind of in a gray area here. We don't want to incur, or we are under, go ahead, David.
After I reviewed what I thought were the corrected minutes, the only thing that was left for me, and I do read closely, was that one word change. So I think for efficiency's sake, let's get the word changed, let this one go, let it go behind us. I like the idea of the more summary action approach to minutes. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
I think it's a really smart idea, but let's not redo this one. You're within the word.
okay.
Let's get that done.
So who are we gonna direct to do the one word change? Mary?
Either I can do it or Mary can.
I'll go in because I'm not.
Okay. And,
You emailed me that word, so I can get out of the email.
okay, and Melissa, you're okay with next month? We'll do action minutes, okay?
Okay. I do though want to say that just going and saying CDP so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. It was discussed, it was moved by, et cetera, does not give the owner who goes back to the minutes any idea as to what you saw when you saw the property. And it doesn't give the county
True.
the information about it either, if you put that in the minutes. But if you say,
We made,
so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that,
on that one, Mary, yeah.
these were points that were pointed out that were discussed.
Right, one of the council members may need to discuss that with that specific applicant and refer them to the start minute and end minute on the actual video recording of the
So you're
meeting.
gonna tell the county.
Well-
Well, it depends, we're talking about the applicant, so
Well, but the
If
county
they
wants to
don't-
read it. Say to
So-
the county.
who's first?
Sorry.
Henry? Go ahead, Henry.
Well, so as far as what policy 51 says is our rule with respect to those permit discussions, we're supposed to send them, our advice, not just up or down, but also with any stipulations and I think any relevant discussion that we think is important for them to know. And they also say that can and should, if appropriate, include a minority report in case there are objections on the council, people who say, no, we should do it this other way, that there should be a second thing about why people on the council felt differently, even if the majority vote was in favor or opposed or whatever. So I think that would be the appropriate avenue for that level of detail, would be the report that we send to the county. And if the applicant wants to review that, either with the county or independently, they can do that, rather than expecting them to go to meeting minutes, of which their review is only going to be one small part.
Okay, Don, then Dave.
Yeah, I just
Thank you.
want to say for the record that I totally agree with a more summarized version of the minutes, action minutes, if we want to call them that. I think having 5, 6, 7 pages of minutes is excessive, and we can see what it has led to. It has led to all this time we've been spending at the beginning of our meetings trying to correct and get accurate the minutes because they're so detailed. I don't think they need to be anywhere near that detailed. And something I noticed in watching the Board of Supervisors, for example, they don't spend a second going over the minutes. It's a consent item. They just pass a consent agenda, boom, it's done. They don't waste any time with the minutes because I don't know, I've never actually read them, but nobody seems to have a problem with them, like we do here. So going to a more concise, condensed action style of minutes, I think is the way we need to go. So I am totally in favor of that.
Somebody must be proofreading those prior to those getting on the consent agenda at the county is what I think, but I don't know for a fact.
Okay.
David, you're next and then.
Yeah, 3 things. Yes, quality control is a really big issue and there is proofreading happening. Mary doesn't have that kind of depth behind her. So there are many of the errors that I detect are frankly proofing problems. But again, we're running with a really thin bench, so we get what we pay for it. Number 2, I think I agree with you, Henry, completely. Let's let the staff report. We have a format for each of these project referrals. And we have a lot of flexibility on the attachment. If there's anything that we need to communicate with the applicant in the county, that's where it should go. Whatever details are necessary. I know that when I write those reports, and you've seen them, Mary, whatever we have to say, it's just in that attachment. We don't have to bear that burden in the minutes. So if we can all agree that that's where the information goes, as Henry mentioned, I think that's a really great idea.
And you got a third point? No.
Now it's gone, so probably best for all of us that it's gone.
But back to that, yes, the cover page of the application explains it all.
The cover page gives us, again, very simple response, but then we have the
Right.
ability to attach a second sheet, and that's where the
Okay.
stuff goes.
And if you say in the minutes, points discussed, water, Isha, driveway, grading, et cetera, and just list them down, and then that's it. There'll be 5 lines or 4 lines of minutes on that CDP, and it'll be done.
Great.
That sounds great.
Barry, do you want any examples of guidance for a format? Or you know what you want to do for summary minutes?
There are minutes before August, I do believe, that were in the action form between January and August that have those points listed for CDPs that will show you, you know, the points discussed, blah, 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 and then the motions are on the 3rd column. Was moved, seconded, that this be done, so and so write the letter.
Okay,
And it usually takes up maybe 1.5 to 3 inches.
I'd like to recommend, Mary, I appreciate all the effort that goes into the columnar organization. However, it takes up a lot of space. So I'd recommend a different approach, that you have minutes, summary minutes by item. You go ahead and use the whole page. And you organize the different elements of each of those report outs, those minutes.
So you don't
Simply
want after
very-
minutes, you want to go back to the others, but only say the points are here, 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 here.
I'm going to send you a format that is used by the Mendocino Coast Recreation and Park District. It's really simple, it's really efficient, and it's being deployed by an agency. So I'll send that to you, and if you think you can use it, my recommendation is,
I'd be glad we got it, but
Okay.
it might be a moot point.
And they're referred to as action minutes also?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we gonna do
I
with
think Dan's got a
Dan? I'm sorry.
I would concur with what was just, Dave just said. I think it's imperative. It's important for us to communicate clearly with both planning and development and the applicant about what we say about what their proposal, their application and objections that we have and so forth. And again, if we're perfectly okay with it the way it is, just say, we're perfectly okay with it the way it is, go for it. And that will eliminate the need to have all the stuff about CDPs and such in the minutes. That's not needful.
So we had a one-word change in these October 5th, 2023 meeting minutes with corrections. Is that right?
I'll ask for,
There was what?
I asked for just one word.
Just one word. Do we want to make that edit now and then vote on the edited corrected minutes, or do we want to table this? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 5th minutes with the 1-word correction.
I'll second that.
Okay. Let's take a voice vote on that. Finley,
Aye.
Schwab,
Yes,
Hess,
Aye.
Mayor, Lewis,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
and Jungling. Aye. Okay, thanks.
Don't get-
How about the November 2nd meeting minutes as written? What are we gonna do on those?
oh, go ahead, sorry.
Has everybody reviewed them? First of all,
I have reviewed and I'd like to offer some adjustments.
okay. Go ahead.
Do we want to, others, go ahead, weigh in. I'll wait until everyone's ready.
Who wants to weigh in first? Henry? Okay.
I would just say, I think we've got a pretty tight, we've got a lot going on today. I would move maybe that we just table that until next time. You can work directly to get adjustments drafted and distributed, and then we can vote on them next time rather than discussing them now. Does that
I'll agree
sound
with
okay to
that,
everybody?
Henry. The reason why I agree with that is that I made that announcement prior to you getting on that we need to push this meeting along a little bit because we do have a lot to cover. So if others are in favor of that too, because there might be more than we think, and we know how these conversations get pushed out, maybe,
Can I offer an action then?
sure.
Why don't I send to this whole group, so we don't have a Brown Act violation, I'll send my revisions.
Mhm.
Then you'll have them similar to the way Mary called out for adjustments. So
Okay, and any other revisions should be also sent in.
whomever has them.
Right.
So why don't we just go that route? and
Okay.
See the done deals next month.
So do we have a motion to table the November 2nd meeting minutes?
I move to table the November 2nd meeting minutes until next meeting.
Okay,
second that.
and Melissa seconds that, okay. We'll do another voice vote on that. Finley,
Aye.
Schbach,
Yes.
Hess,
Aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
and Jungling. Aye.
Okay.
Okay. So then we are moving on to item 3B, that's correspondence. As you know, I wrote email to everybody and asked for any other public correspondence that they might have to send it to me. And these were the only ones I had, so do we have any additional public correspondence that we need to enter here, or are we okay?
No.
Nope.
Hearing none? Okay, then we don't have, well, approval of agenda we have next on the agenda, agenda here, yeah. Do we have a motion to approve the December 7th agenda?
I move we approve the December 2nd agenda.
I second.
Melissa seconds, okay. Finley,
Aye.
Schbach,
Yes.
Hess,
Aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Jungling, aye. Okay, then we have public input on non-agenda items. Anyone from the audience, anyone from the council? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our law code enforcement report. With Deputy Michael.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm gonna go ahead and share the six.
Michael, excuse me. You might want to move that microphone like towards the end of the table.
I could actually hear just fine.
Oh, you could, okay.
Okay, so just to keep everything uniform, I'm gonna give you the same statistics that I drew up for the Point Arena City Council meeting as well. This is covering from October 24th to the 28th of this month, which was last week at the beginning of my shift. So all in total, we have 30 calls for service, 26 reports were taken, numerous extra patrols done throughout the South Coast. 23 proactive traffic stops and pedestrian stops as well. Out of those 23 stops, 6 citations were issued, going from unlicensed driver, having an unregistered vehicle, no insurance, driving while suspended or revoked, probation violation, driving while suspended, with seizure of narcotics and narcotic paraphernalia. Another driving without a license, driving with an unregistered vehicle and no insurance, that vehicle is also towed and stored. Another driving without a license, no insurance, and a probation violation. And another one of driving while on suspended or revoked license and a probation violation. And throughout that month and time, there were 6 arrests made at Point Arena, ranging from probation violation to driving on a suspended or revoked license with a habitual offense. And we also had an incident down at Point Arena where someone was arrested for being a felon in possession of a firearm, negligent discharge of a firearm, felony vandalism, probation violation, and possession of drug paraphernalia as well.
Busy month.
It definitely has been. And another arrest for some misdemeanor warrants and driving on a suspended driver's license. Another arrest for a misdemeanor warrant. An arrest for violation of court order, seizure of narcotics and narcotic paraphernalia. And then we had 2 more arrests that occurred there in Point Arena on top of that, of driving on a suspended license and driving without driving on a suspended license and violation of probation, and then 1 public intoxication arrest. And out of all that, the arrests, there was only 1 arrest that was made in our town of Walla, and that was just for a misdemeanor warrant. So on the report breakdown for the month, we had 8 arrest reports, 6 citation reports, 2 vandalism reports, 2 burglary reports, 2 violation of court order reports, 1 theft report, 1 fraud report, 1 missing juvenile report, a traffic collision in the city of Point Arena, a documentation report, and then a shots fired report. So it definitely was a busy month. I just urge people to please drive carefully. We are experiencing some more weather. You know, we do have branches falling in the roadway, a lot of cows in the road if you're driving north. So watch out for them. They continue to get out. We're trying to rectify that situation, and then just be prepared in case we have another winter like last year, and that we have power go out, phones go out, and just make sure that you have all your establishments ready and are just ready just in case. If anyone's got any questions.
Nobody?
Mary.
Mary?
So the people who are driving without a current license or without insurance, they don't have a blinking light on the back of their car saying, I don't have insurance, I don't have insurance. So their tail light was out, you pulled them over? Or they ran a stop sign?
The reason that there was a traffic enforcement stop conducted is because there was a violation of the California Vehicle Code. And it could be from numerous things, the speed, the burnout lights, or anything like that. And there also is a lot of knowledge from people we've contacted, and I may see somebody, or another deputy may see somebody driving down the road, and we have previous knowledge, and we confirm that knowledge. The rising up probable cause to conduct that stop to rectify that situation. And as everybody knows, if you don't pay your insurance, all our insurances go up too. So at the end of the year, uninsured drivers is a big thing throughout the whole state of California.
I just know everything is up to snuff with me, but the other day I went out without my purse. And so I was driving with a license.
Well, the driving without a license is completely not being licensed in the state of California. You know, it is a common mistake. I forgot my wallet myself and left the house, and I made it to Fort Bragg and realized I gotta drive back because I can't pay for my groceries sometimes. So, but
Yeah, you can't have an Apple Watch.
if I figured out how to set that up, maybe. So, but
Well, say you know your license number by heart, your driver's license number, and tell it to the officer.
yeah, and that's another thing. We have other ways to verify things like that.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
just correcting actions, you know, ahead of time, because as long as we're coming to the minor actions that may be happening, that can curb, you know, more serious crimes as well.
but you can match up face recognition, I'm sure, yeah.
I have mine memorized since
I do too.
1964. I've had that number, so I have that memorized long, long, quite some time.
So driving without a license doesn't include, oh, I haven't, but I left it in home.
Yeah, if I'm able to verify, if a deputy's able to verify, that's completely fine if you have a license. When I mean, like I said, when I mean unlicensed driver is just not being issued by, in the state of California or any other state by that means.
They have no license, not that they have no license to use them.
Okay, any other questions of Deputy Jensen, Henry?
Happy.
None for me.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and have a wonderful Christmas. And
Thank you,
stay safe.
Michael.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Deputy.
Yes, please stay safe.
We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
Have a
same
wonderful
to the
evening.
sheriff, okay? Yeah,
Will do.
see you. Okay, well, that was short and sweet. We've had this permit review here, always on our agendas, as I'd like to refer you to the public agency referrals I got off of the Mendocino County website. They were posted, let me see, I looked last Friday, they were posted, so I included them. So we'll deal with that when we get to that part of the agenda. So we're on to council matters. We've got plenty of old business, but I don't have any specific old business, so I will pass on any report there. Walla Services Committee, we have the 2 letters or emails from Nadia Tipton. Anything else on the Walla Parks report that you wanted to mention in the meeting session here?
Quickly, the county provides, the GSA director, Janelle, provided a report to council, as I think it's part of maybe the CEO's report. And it indicated the current status of the Bower Park project. And it's currently in the design development phase. And they've spent, I think, all of $100, $500 so far So there's still $2,199,279 left in the account.
There's still 300 something thousand that they're gonna pay the architect, that's still,
That's all, yeah, that's all inclusive in the contract.
okay.
And will come out of the grant money from the state.
It will come out of here.
Yeah.
And the RFP situation has been taken care of. There's been somebody selected, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what's in those emails, okay.
Yeah.
And anything else from on the Parks report?
No,
Henry, Lewis?
Not
No.
for me.
Okay. Affordable housing report. I don't have anything. So we'll move right along there. How about economic development report?
none this evening.
Okay. I'll have more for us next month on that a little bit. GCAP committee, we didn't meet, but I think David might have something to add here briefly, or do you?
Yes,
Yes.
briefly, we're on. We got
Right.
funding. Our buddies at the Mendocino County Council of Governments decided to advance our project by adopting the Regional Transportation Improvement Program for 2023-24, including $1.2 million in state transportation improvement program funding. So that will go to Caltrans along with number of other projects, including an enhancement to the pending Mountain View Road overlay project. So, and that budget was doubled from $2 to $4 million in order to apply asphalt and concrete, essentially harden the road surface in places that get a lot of energy because of tight curves, both vertical and horizontal, do some enhanced work on drainage. So it's essentially to make this upgrade much more resilient and long lasting. So it's really great to have that also in the books.
Yeah, I was listening that on the MCOG video, and they didn't mean the whole stretch, but they
No, no, no.
mean that would be much too much, yeah.
The whole stretch will receive I think it'll be graded and chip seal and, kind of pothole level. But then those places, those tight curves, those steep approaches and
Right.
departures, will get some additional, again, asphaltic armoring. The other news with respect to the Streetscape project is that the project has been approved. EAED was completed on the 13th of November. I have a PRA request into Caltrans to get all over the documents. As soon as I get them, I'll be really happy and thrilled to share them with you all. So good progress on the way. Project still includes Ocean Drive, left turn pocket southbound.
Mhm.
So that's funded in the project. Well, those are the big pieces of news for MCOG.
Two different Caltrans numbers, right? I heard that part.
Yeah, it's Caltrans there are three for that
Three.
particular project. Don't go down the numbers hole, essentially.
Yeah.
It's- Their accounting methods are, I think, at least for those of us in the real world, they're a bit inscrutable. But they are what they are, and the program is moving forward. My understanding is that there's a date in front of MCOG for Caltrans to do a presentation on the rollout project. Again, to the MCOG board in February. I have a note into a point of contact at Caltrans to find out if we can kind of get them to bring the roadshow here. So I don't know any more than that, but I'll keep in touch I'll try to give you an update in next month. So that's the big news moving forward. Robert, were you gonna talk about your position with respect to that project?
Well, yeah, along those lines, county council has been in contact with me on a specific matter concerning conflict of interest, so, but I am not really at liberty to discuss it in a public setting. I'll refrain from further discussing it really in any official capacity, okay?
Will it be shared with the council?
Yeah, I just shared it. That I cannot further discuss this at this time.
Okay.
May I ask another question, Robert?
Sure.
How does that outcome affect the currently established committee for that project?
But there shouldn't be a conflict there. Okay,
With all due respect, that's not what I heard from County Council or Supervisor Williams.
well, and that's why I mentioned a specific item, a specific matter concerning conflict of interest is what I addressed, or what I talked to the council about. So there should really be no further discussion on this in my official capacity. This is what I'm told.
Okay,
Okay,
I just, again,
so
note for the record, Robert, that your handling is insufficient. There are other related issues related to the currently constituted committee, which you are a member of, at least on writing here on the agenda. If your participation is affected, then that committee is consequently affected. And I would like that issue to be resolved.
I will further discuss it with county council. Okay. The
Uh,
next
can I-
one,
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand what exactly was just said. My interpretation of this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is a specific issue on which you will refrain from any discussion in your official capacity, but other issues related to Streetscape that don't touch on that specific issue are unaffected. Am I hearing that right?
that's my understanding.
Okay.
Well,
Just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly.
Again, it should not be discussed further in.
No, that's enough for me. I wanted to make sure I understood what you had said, and it sounds like I did.
Okay.
with
Thank
all
you.
due respect, interpretation.
Let's move
Robert is
on to
incorrect.
item number D. That's electric vehicle charging stations. Anything on that, Don? Yes.
No, I don't really have anything new to report, Robert, this month. I've been kind of busy with other matters. So. No, nothing really to say at this point, no.
And how about on telecommunications committee, S and Mayor?
Well, as you can see, we have a new sound system. Hopefully it will record correctly. I mean, it appears to be. But
I hear everybody great. It's wonderful.
yeah, okay, well, that's good. But the key is it being recorded to Zoom? Which it appears to be. So,
Great.
so work okay. We've got 4 microphones now. That appears to be covering, all the council members okay. We may eventually need a 5th one for audience participation, especially if there are more people involved in any one of our future meetings. But for the time being, I think we're okay. I was very concerned about poor recording quality that we had before. Some council members, you could hardly hear what they were saying, in the Zoom recordings that we put on YouTube. So hopefully this will be a big improvement, because I think all of our voices are equally important to hear and understand.
Well, thank you for doing that. I'm enjoying it this particular evening.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Don. Water ad hoc committee, anything on that? Melissa, Don, myself, I don't think so, so we'll move on there. Wallala Community Center Rebuilding Committee, that's Evans and Schbach,
We have nothing to report.
nothing on that to report. We had the big presentation last month on, from Peter McNamee. Anything else on local coastal plan, Wallala Town Plan Update Committee? Yes, Don.
Can we go back to the community center for a second? I kind of would like just a brief update, Kevin, maybe in terms of where we're at in terms of the tear down, the demolition and preparation for foundation, whatever's going on there.
Right now, we're in the process of amending the demolition contract to do the remainder of the cement and the foundation. We didn't include that in the original bid because we weren't sure if we were gonna have to tear that out. And after inspection, we found that it was not gonna support a new structure. So we're amending that contract. We're in the final design phase, and the board will be approving 100% of the design phase at the next board meeting. And we're hoping to have a couple briefing meetings and then a public launching of the new community center towards the end of January.
So when you say design phase, is that actually having architectural plans and all that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we're at the rough stage right now. What we're hoping to do is once we get past this, we're looking at possibly hiring a contractor on a design build phase or a contract to help us with the whole design from start to finish. So we're moving forward, and David probably has some pearls of wisdom. Nothing.
No, I appreciate you giving me an update. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Kevin.
I've seen an amazing amount of bricks being cleaned, which is a really thankless task. I was wondering if they were gonna be reused in the new building.
We're kind of looking at the materials right now that are gonna be used in the new structure. A lot of the redwood we're hoping to capture and keep, either maybe in the use of exterior benches. We had some of the redwood that was picked up, and they're looking at, we have a couple people right now that are looking at making a conference table for the small conference room made out of the redwood from the.
I was asking about the bricks,
So
the bricks.
the bricks right now, we're still in the cleaning phase.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get the mortar off there, but we're hoping that once we do that, that we may open it up to the public to donate money for a brick, and that will go towards our rebuilding fund.
Is there gonna be any, like, public outreach during the, more official, like, design process for, community input on the design features of
Yeah.
the new building?
That'll happen probably at the I think it's January 31st is that they're looking at launching it to the public. So yeah, that'll offer the public a chance to look at the new project and provide any input that they feel would be appropriate.
Thank you.
All right, well. Don?
Does anybody mind if I turn the heat on for a few minutes? Go for it.
Not at all. Okay, well done, does that. We'll move on to new business. And I'm not seeing anything there other than maybe I meant to put in. Well, county policy number 51 and GMAC bylaws committee is our next big topic. And we'll continue our discussion of the county draft review of our GMAC bylaws. And the GMAC bylaws committee first draft review that was hashed out and that we posted on the website. I think it was the day before or 2 days before Thanksgiving. The bylaws committee, we met 3 different times. It was on the 7th of November, 14th of November, 20th of November. I think they were around 2-hour sessions, if I'm not mistaken. And you see what we have come up with on our draft. Does Melissa or Henry want to add to that a little?
No, I think. the draft is
Yeah,
what-
sure. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
No, I was gonna say, I thought the draft spoke for itself.
So I guess just to give a little bit of background on sort of framework thought process, the goal was not to rewrite the bylaws and have a brand new set of shiny bylaws. The goal was to more or less preserve what was already there, which has worked well enough, while making sure we resolved the issues that were raised by county council, and trying to address some of the more strongly held issues that were raised by council members. So we did not want to come into this wholesale rewriting I certainly did not feel remotely qualified to do that. So this is the result. I am sure it is imperfect in any number of ways, some of which are leftover imperfections, some of which are brand new ones. But that's just to give a sense of sort of what approach we took to it.
And so.
And then as far as how, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was wondering, in terms of just operationally, how we want to discuss this.
Right.
Do we want to have people bring up things they want to discuss? Do we want to sort of go through section by section and sort of just ask, does anybody want to talk about this one? Does anybody want to talk about this one? How does anybody have opinions on how to handle the discussion?
That's what I was gonna also mention is how do we wanna go forward from here? Do we wanna discuss it now in open session? Do we wanna give some comments for the record on the draft review that we did? Feel free. I think David said something in an email to us.
Yep.
That he had, some further suggestions. So how do we wanna?
Yeah, and I already have a few myself.
Okay. So who wants to go first?
Well, do we want to do it that way of just solicit comments, or do we want to go section by section and discuss it that way?
Well, that's part of what we need to discuss here. How are we gonna go about this? Do we wanna look at the draft together, everybody? Does everybody have a copy in front of them?
I have a draft with the county correction recommendations. That's the draft
That you have, okay.
That's the draft that I have.
Does anybody else have the bylaws committee draft in front of them?
I have the bylaws committee draft printed with a series of further edits that I'd like to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's based on the platform of the piece that you guys sent out, or
Right.
was posted to the website, so
Right.
it could be useful. Right, it's this thing just printed on paper,
Okay,
so if people feel more comfortable with that in front of them, I can hand it out.
You can share my copy with David. This is.
then go ahead.
Yeah, because I've got
You got it, very cool.
mine.
I've got that copy now. David wants to introduce that copy with his suggestions on it. That's what we'll do next.
Is there any way somebody could send that to me?
No.
Dave, do you have an electronic copy that you could email to me?
I'm not connected to the internet, you know what my problem is.
Right.
You know what, that if we discuss it, I'll be very specific about where edits occur. So if you have a copy of the file that was posted to the internet, well, you'll be able to follow along.
Yeah.
You can see it right now, can't you, Henry?
Yeah, and I've got the draft and also the red line, the comparison
From this thing,
between previous and current, and the new draft.
This thing.
Then I won't.
So I've got those.
Second, county council's recommendations on those fees, on parties, the committee's recommendations.
It's incorporating everything, I believe.
Yeah, it incorporates everything. There's one area where I would say we did not incorporate their suggestion, where I think we should discuss it here, but then we need to run it by them and see how strongly held that position was. But I can wait till we get to that.
Okay, great.
But for the most part, it incorporates all of their requests.
Yeah.
Okay, then should we go through it page by page? Anybody want to mention anything on page 1 here? That would be section 1.01, 02, and 1.01, 1.02, and 2.01. It doesn't look like there's anything different there.
I'd like to offer one minor change. It's a typographic error. In
Oh.
the title of GMAC, there's a space between G and M.
Oh, I see that.
Probably don't need that space.
We don't need that space. Okay.
More gangster.
Should we put something here next to draft amendment that these are your suggestions?
I will. I'm happy to go through. I'm happy to make some updates on my Google Doc copy as suggestions, and I guess it won't be clear who's making them, but at least I'll have some record of them as we go.
Okay. So should we go to the next page then? Since we've mentioned everything on the first page, that is, putting the GMAC together, the letters. And making a note that these are David's suggestions, this copy that we're working with right now, and referencing along with the copy that the bylaws committee has in front of them, orders
Yeah,
has also worked with. So I'm looking at two sets myself.
that's fine, but just to be clear, the edited piece that I just handed out,
Yeah,
that is essentially a marked up version of the committee's recommendation that was posted to the website. So
okay.
all of that's in here.
Okay, so then let's go to section or Article 3, Section 3.02. It looks like there's
Yes.
4 different items there that are added.
I'm recommending in the second sentence that the comma after officer and the words so and comma are deleted along with the word remaining. And I'll tell you why. It's the intent of these changes is to give the council the option to reorganize at any time, subject to a majority vote. The way this is, the way the draft is rendered, it's difficult to understand. So just simplify.
Yeah, that comma, the comma after so is an error. That was going to be one of my suggestions as well, which I've already written down on my copy of it. It should say, or if so requested by a majority vote of the remaining members.
So it sounds like you concur, that was the intent of the committee, was to provide an option of a majority vote for reorganization. Is that correct, Henry?
Yeah, that is the intent of the draft. I think that's worth discussing. I know that there are differing opinions on the council as to whether that should be a majority vote or a 2/3 majority. But the intent of the draft is certainly to make that an option for a majority vote.
Okay.
Without necessarily requiring the departure of a member. So certainly the comma after so makes that very confusing. If we think it's still confusing after removing that comma, then we should clarify it. But I think before we do that, we should discuss whether that's actually what we want.
I have a question. So basically what the change is sort of implying here is that in effect, by a majority vote of the members, the council could reorganize itself at any moment in time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how this revision reads.
But then we are also saying that we are required on an annual basis to make sure that we also make sure that we at least say that we are going to do it, you know, on the first meeting of each calendar year.
Exactly.
At any time throughout the year, we can also, if we need to if we want to
We can
make
change the
changes.
lines.
Okay. But really guaranteeing that we will make that vote on an annual
At
basis.
least on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Robert, I've got an addition as well, if it's
Mhm.
appropriate.
Okay,
Under section 3.02, we do need to add the position of secretary, so we would appoint a chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And
Thank you.
the reason for that is back in the bylaws that were adopted in November 6, 2003, and also July 1st, 2010, section -3.02 organizational meetings, the council members shall organize by electing from their number a chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer.
Yeah, that's a total oversight. That's actually, it's required by policy 51 too. We have to have all 4 of those. They use the terms presiding officer and assistant presiding officer instead of chair and vice chair. I don't think they care about the terms, but those 4 roles need to be present. And the other MAC's bylaws tend to use chair and vice chair in their language. So I've stuck with that. But I don't feel strongly one way or the other, but secretary's got to be in there. That's just an oversight. And elsewhere in the document, it assumes the existence of the secretary. So thank you for catching
right.
that.
And that was in my notes also. Don,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is the way it used to be, because I have a little bit of concern about this in terms of stability. To me, having the election, a required election at the start of the year, I think that's fine. But I really think that that election should be valid for the entire year. Otherwise, that introduces potential instability in the composition of the council. I just don't see any real need for that. I do understand reorganizing itself if there's a departure or resignation of an existing officer, but if just a majority vote of the members at any point in time, at any meeting, to be able to reconstitute itself and reorganize itself, I think that means instability. And most governments do not have this type of, manner of organization. We elect a government, it's elected for a certain amount of time until the next election. And we live with that election. Elections have consequences, and those consequences are, we live with the results of that election and the leaders that were elected. So just on a basis of principle, I don't agree with this.
Robert, can I chime in? Don, I would agree with Don completely, and I think that sentence there that says that you could reorganize from a 2/3 and now we're suggesting a majority. I think that sentence was put in there because there was not a definitive organizational timeframe as established by policy 51. So this now with the reorganization at our first meeting establishes a specific time. And I don't think we need to have that sentence that says we can reorganize at any time with a majority rule, because now we have in place, other than a resignation, we have in place a process to elect our officers annually. And I would concur.
Then I favor striking this part.
May I comment?
Well, out of curiosity, are you saying striking or adjusting it to, the previous draft said, or the current bylaws say 2/3. So you're suggesting striking it completely, saying there is no method for changing officers outside of the January meeting, or returning back to a 2/3 majority?
Well, myself, I would have less problem certainly with a 2/3 majority than just a simple majority, because that raises the bar, makes it more difficult to do something like that, which is kind of a radical move within that 1 year period after you've already elected the officers at the beginning of the year. So I might support 2/3 vote, but I definitely do not support majority vote.
May I comment?
Yeah.
who was next?
I believe I would.
Kevin, you went, then David next, Henry, and then Kevin, it doesn't matter. Go ahead, David. Everybody
GMAC,
has something to say, okay.
GMAC is a function of government, it is not a government. We don't have any particular power. We are a platform for discussion. And to impose restrictive processes on how this group functions and is constituted, I believe is unnecessary. And also ignores the fact that changes do occur, that we work well when we're able to adapt and adapt nimbly. These are how we organize ourselves on the basis of the majority vote. And if things happen, if it's convenient and that the majority feels that, well, maybe the set of officers that we thought would work well at the beginning of the year just really isn't working out. It doesn't happen with any time. It takes 2 meetings to take an action, one to agendize and the other one with notice to be executed. So it isn't as frivolous, Don, as I think you make it out to be. And that any imposition of a 2/3 vote, in my view, is governance by the minority, which is, I don't think at all helpful for an entity like this, which the whole point is, we're about access, we're about adaptation, we're about openness and democracy. This is not an entity or a function that has to be burdened by fear of manipulation. We should be doing everything to throw the doors open and make sure that this is a responsive and adaptable group. So I think it's important that we shall organize every year. That mandate is important. It comes from policy 51. But I also believe that it's important to give ourselves the tools to adapt if we need to, without undue rigmarole, without feeling like we've got we have to live with an unfortunate situation that doesn't work for the majority for an entire year, or for what remainder of that year is. I vote, and you can hear this from me consistently. Let's give ourselves as much flexibility to do the work we have to do, to throw these doors open to anybody who wants to come talk with us, to be an open, flexible, welcoming, democratic platform for discussion, not burdened by, frankly, the challenges of fiscal responsibility or lawmaking, formal liability that comes from permit issuance. We don't have to worry about any of that, and we don't have to be stuck with a 2/3 vote in any of our work.
Dan,
There's a couple of things that come to my mind. One is that while I'm certain that the County Board of Supervisors, we serve at their pleasure. That is to say, they can remove any one of us from this council. As a member of the council at large. And I don't believe that they would exercise authority to remove one of us from office and leave us in the council. I'm not sure that's something they would want to get involved in. That said, we don't have a means within the bylaws for removing somebody from either the council or office for due cause.
right,
Without having that proviso in there. So if somebody really, really does something unreasonable, undue, bring shame, whatever you want to call it, conduct unbecoming, we need to have some flexibility in terms of, if we can't remove them from the council, we can remove them from office if it's absolutely necessary. And whether you want to do that by a majority vote, a supermajority vote, is a different topic we can discuss. The other thing I wanted to say is, we have a parliamentarian. Do we want to make that not an officer necessarily, but a position that's mentioned in the bylaws?
We have an unofficial parliamentarian, just to be
We do.
clear.
right.
I was gonna raise that exact same point, because is the parliamentarian considered an officer? And obviously,
No,
so is there can we add that as an officer position? Like, I don't know exactly where the parliamentarian lies as far as when we're talking about officers on the council.
it's an unofficial title at this point, trying to keep things straight and behave according to the appropriate rules.
With a complete lack of power, I should clarify. Nobody has to
Right,
listen to me.
So it's not necessary to specify in
Okay.
the bylaws.
Nor is it being mandated. So,
Sure.
okay, Dan, are you done?
Yeah.
Who'll be next? I'm trying to keep in order. I think it was Kevin, then we'll go to Melissa, and we'll go from there.
I wanted to make a point that due to the departure of an existing officer, you don't reorganize the council, you elect another secretary, you elect another treasurer, if someone leaves GMAC and they're an officer, we just need to have a re-election. We don't need to reorganize and vote for everybody. That's reorganize. You just need to vote for whoever left. I mean, that makes sense we had to do that before. When
Right.
people have left the council, we just had another election. It wasn't even specified in the bylaws, it's just common sense that you just do it.
We're fielding comments from everybody here, right? So that we can hopefully incorporate this into a further draft, as I understand.
Mhm.
So let's
Yeah.
keep on getting input. I think Kevin was next, and then I think Henry was.
I guess my point is this, when we select our officers at the beginning of the year, we're having a vote of confidence for them to serve as in their position for 1 year. I don't want the pressure placed on them thinking, well, if I don't do my job, or if I have a majority of the people that don't like me, I can get voted off. We had that at the national level. We definitely don't want that at the local level. But we do have in place that if someone leaves, like in the case with Tom Murphy, when he left, then we had to fill his vice chairmanship. So I think we have that in place. If an officer leaves, then we can refill that position, and Melissa's right, we don't have to necessarily go through the whole organization or restructure. We could just fill that one position, but I would like to think that at our first meeting, that our vote of confidence for all officers that are appointed, that we're giving them that ability to serve 1 year, and then if we don't like the way they're serving, then we can change that at the beginning of the next year. But I really feel it's important for continuity that we don't leave that open door, that if you fall out of favor, that a majority or even 2/3 could vote you out of office. I think to answer, I think Melissa's question, there is something in the policy 51 that talks about the Board of Supervisors, if they feel that we're not operating in compliance with their policy, that they could dissolve. I think that is under item H, and it says that they may dissolve. I believe that that would also be applicable, that if the supervisors found that a member was not operating in compliance with their directives, that they at any meeting could agendize that and say, we feel that this person needs to be removed for XYZ. So I believe that item H is not just strictly for dissolving the council, but it could also be maybe removing an individual that's not adhering to the direction and guidelines established by the county and the Board of Supervisors.
Don?
Okay, after listening to several of you, I'm in favor of basically leaving it the way it was, which was a 2/3 vote, to remove somebody from an office or elect somebody new. And, after beginning of the year, of course, I agree, we have an election. We appoint our officers, and then, they're in office for 1 year. But we do have a mechanism to remove one of those officers and replace them. But it is a 2/3 vote. It's a little higher bar than a majority vote. That's what I would support. Basically, what we had before.
Can I quickly ask, do we all agree what 2/3 is in this council? Is it 5? Is it 5 votes? What's the vote count out of the amount of, out of 7? What do we all agree is 2/3?
Well, 2/3 is a fraction, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be 5 votes
Yeah.
in
okay.
a 7-member body. If we had a vacancy,
I
then
figured
it
so.
would
I
be
just
4
wanted to be
votes.
clear because we're an odd number.
Yeah, it's anything 2/3 or more. Obviously, you can't get exactly 2/3 out of 7, so it's 5
Right.
votes. But if the reason why it used to say 5 votes, either here or in the changing the bylaws, I can't remember which one. And then in the last round of amendments, it was changed from 5 votes to 2/3, and that was because they had operated recently in a context of having only 6, or I think maybe even at one point 4 or 5 members. So they changed it to just say, well, it's 2/3 of members, which is the same as 5 in normal times, but if there are vacancies, it's a reduced number.
So 2/3 of who's in attendance.
Okay.
No, it's 2/3 of the members. And that's important.
7
You
members.
can't have a meeting where, oh, we only had 4 people show up and 3 of them say we're changing officers and that's binding.
Yeah, that would be fair.
It's 2/3 of the members, not attendance.
Robert, I have one other change on.
Oh, sorry, wait, sorry, actually,
4.03. Oh, sorry, Henry.
sorry. I just wanted to chime in one more, with one thing on this discussion, which is, I don't feel strongly on this issue because I'm highly ambivalent. I think it's a bad situation if you have a majority of the council wants to change an officer out. Like that's a bad situation no matter what. And so I think there are 2 evils that come from that. One is changing in the middle of the year, and I guess the idea that somebody might be afraid of that happening, although it's not like being an officer of GMAC is some sort of powerful, illustrious position that necessarily would like strike fear that you were going to lose it. Like, it's also it's an obligation and that people are taking on willingly, but it's not, there's no salary associated with it, for example. But I do agree that lack of stability is an ill that would come from having a bare majority be able to change officers. On the other hand, having an officer of the council operate in an adversarial relationship with a majority of the council, such that you have meeting after meeting where, a majority of members of the council don't want this person to play that role anymore, but that person keeps playing it, presumably continues doing the thing that's bothering a majority of the council. Like, that's not good either. So if we hopefully we don't ever run into that situation. It's not a good situation to be in no matter how we resolve it. But that to me is the question, is you're balancing those 2 ills. One is the lack of stability and the concern about lack of stability, and the other is the potential for this adversarial relationship between an officer and a majority of the council. So I come down it's not a huge difference for me, but I come down on the side of, I don't find it super tenable to have an officer operating in an adversarial relationship with a majority of the council. But I can see the other side. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, I had one. Henry, under 4.03.
Wait, are we moving on? Are we moving on from this
On
discussion?
on Article 3. Oh, no, actually, I'm sorry, Article 4, it's at the bottom of the page. It's 4.03. All funds budgeted for operation of the council, not of the committee.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah, we're still on 3.02, you guys, okay?
Oh, okay.
We'll
Yeah,
get
I'll make that change right now anyway, but yeah, let's finish out on this one
All
first.
right.
on this thought process that we're going through on 3.02. So everybody's gotten their 2 cents in. Dan?
I have a question for clarification here, and it needs to be memorialized in the wording if we do pass this. Are we saying we want a 2/3 vote to reorganize? Or are we saying we want to be able to have a 2/3 vote to initiate a removal process and a 2/3 vote to actually do a removal process, or both, or either? That's not something that's clear to me at this point. Because you gotta have a motion to do this, to hold a special procedure. And does that take a 2/3 vote, or does the actual change take a 2/3 vote, or both?
And Robert, if I could piggyback what Dan said,
Okay, and then
that first line, when we're talking about the first meeting, we shall organize by electing new officers. Is that a initial vote on that first meeting? That's a simple majority vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, unless otherwise specified.
Probably should include that there, and then if we want to request to reorganize, then that would be 2/3 vote.
Yeah, everything. So the way the current bylaws are written, it's not specified what the organizational meeting is, and then the 2/3 vote is specified for reorganizing outside of that. Anytime it's not specified, it's assumed to be simple majority. That's just true, broadly speaking, in all these things. So I don't think we should get in the habit of specifying simple majority everywhere. It's just assumed it's simple majority unless otherwise stipulated. But the intention of the draft is that it's 2/3 vote to request a reorganization, and then once you're reorganizing, it's the same as the initial process, which is simple majority.
Oh, so how do
Oh,
we?
sorry. The
How
intent
do
of the
we-
original draft, the intent of the current one is simple majority both ways. Excuse me.
How do we agree on these changes? Do we make motions at each change or how are we gonna do this? Because I think we need to vote on this. Or whether it's gonna be 2/3 or majority.
So
I'll
ultimately,
make the
we're going to
motion
need
right now.
5 votes to amend the bylaws. Under the current bylaws, ultimately it's 2/3 vote to amend the bylaws. So, at some point we're going to have to get to a point where 2/3 of people agree on whatever bylaws come out. I don't think we need a formal motion on each of these issues, but I would be very interested in a straw poll at the very least. If people want to make a formal
Okay,
motion,
let's back up
direct
a
the
second.
drafting.
Don, hang on a second. Don, Henry, what we said at the last meeting was that, or what we agreed upon was that we would come up with a draft. And they wanted to, and I think it was unanimous that we were gonna vote on it. We're already experiencing a lot of new input and opinions, and I think we need to take all this in and come up with something that's a revised draft, is what I'm thinking. I mean, some of us haven't been able to participate in this like the bylaws commission, so we're taking input is how I'm looking at it. I don't know, you want to vote on all these changes we're gonna make tonight, or all this new input we're getting? We may vote on the rough draft, the way it was presented on the website, but that's all I can see us doing.
I would agree with Henry that I think just a simple consensus, you could just go down the road, do you want majority or 2/3? Where it's not an official vote, we don't need a motion second. Just see which way the council is leaning. When we go through the final draft, if we have second thoughts on it, we don't have anything official that we need to change, we can amend it as a council at that time. But I don't think we want to put anything in a formal action and have to have another formal action to remove that. I think a simple consensus would be fine.
Okay,
Robert.
Don, sorry.
Okay, real briefly, my thinking is that since, the end goal is to vote up or down the ultimate draft we come up with.
Right.
Well, the problem is, if we don't agree on these changes as we're going along, or at least get a consensus or majority vote for the changes, then what are we voting on in the end? I don't understand it. Because right now, we do not appear to have a consensus about this one section here.
We don't know.
Whether it's majority vote or 2/3 vote. In my mind, if we go through these fairly quickly, vote up or down each change, the changes that get a majority vote, that's all we need here. Then they're implemented in the draft, and then we have a final draft, and it has all the changes that we've already approved of, and then we vote on it, up or down, the whole thing. Otherwise, we're faced with, okay, we sort of have consensus here, there, who knows if we do, then we have a final draft, and then objections are raised about the final draft, because certain people don't agree with certain phrasing, so I'm just trying to get us to the point where in the end, we have a draft that we do have consensus on, because we've looked at all the changes and a majority approved all the changes already. That's my thought.
You might even have a second meeting this month regarding only bylaws to hash some of this out.
I was just gonna mention, when we went through this process in 2020, it was a long ordeal. Okay, it was, if I remember correctly, at least 3-minute meetings and a special meeting. So a lot of this, I was hoping could be handled in the bylaws committee. So if I'm trying to hear you all out and see what we do as we go through this, but we're stuck on 3.02 right now. Maybe other parts of it will go quicker. I mean, we had nothing,
So Robert, would there be any problem if you just went to each council member and see
straw poll.
what their preference is right now? So we can kind of move forward with this?
Okay, in other words, we want to do a straw poll on 3.02. Henry,
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, I would say there's basically no chance we're going to vote on these bylaws in this meeting, right?
that's what I'm saying,
Anybody
yeah.
object to that statement?
We could
No.
do a vote as we said we were gonna do, and we're not gonna get anywhere, that's what I see.
Yeah. So I think that the way this is going to end up working is we're going to run through it. As Robert said, we're collecting input. Bylaws subcommittee is going to come back and understand if we don't incorporate that input, we're not going to get 5 votes to pass it. So the idea is we'll take the input, we'll try to cobble together whatever we think is the best chance of getting 5 votes. And then we'll come back at the next meeting. And then at that point, we'll have, a next draft. Then we can do formal amendments to that if that's a thing we're actually going to vote on in that meeting. Then we do formal amendments and then a final 2/3 vote to pass. But I think at this point, straw polls is the way to get input.
Okay, who's next? David?
May I suggest a process?
Okay,
Okay, we're gonna have some changes that are just like word changes. For example, Kevin calling out that we need to include secretary in the
Yeah.
office. Okay, that's pretty simple. We're gonna have more of those. So we treat them in a straightforward way. Then there are gonna be some changes that are really issue bound. Like the question in this paragraph is whether or not the council is going to afford itself the opportunity to make a change mid-year or not, kind of yes or no binary. And if yes, whether it's going to be by a majority vote or 2/3 vote. Not quite binary, but pretty damn close. So my suggestion is we tackle those word changes as they come to us, up, down, record, and then tackle the issues as they come to us, and then let the committee figure out the words.
I agree. I was kind
Does
of.
that work for you?
I was gonna kind of suggest this, that let's go through,
Okay.
get the easy stuff done out of the way.
Well, I
Okay.
think we just have, let's tackle them as they go, but some of the outcomes are gonna be change this word if we got it done. And the other one is, here's the issue, how do we feel? And then we hand that direction back to committee, and the committee writes that outcome,
mhm.
okay?
I
Agreed.
concur
Dan,
with that. The way I view this is we're brainstorming to feed opinion to the committee. For the committee to digest and come up with their next suggestion based on what they're hearing.
So it's gonna be an iterative process.
Yeah, it's exactly, it's a malleable ongoing process until we get to where we want to be.
mhm.
And if we tackle it this way, chances are it'll be one more iteration with probably last edits at the end.
It's
Kind of how it was last time, yeah.
So if that process looks good, shall I read off my notes and then we can just do up downs for the outcomes?
Okay,
Right.
Wait, sorry, are you talking about for 302 specifically?
We're looking at section 302, 3.02. In the first sentence, somebody called out whether or not we need to mention that the council members shall organize by electing by simple majority vote. Do we need to say those words, simple majority vote? Okay, so we're clear. We're going to leave the beginning of that first sentence alone, but we're going to add secretary to the
Yes.
list of officers. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I think we're good with that change in that sentence. Is that
Yeah.
good for the committee?
Shall organize,
Yeah, I've already made that change in my document.
You got it?
right, the
So
secretary
Henry's got
part. What
Great.
Dave
Yeah.
was mentioning was shall organize, that means by
So
electing through a majority.
if that is, if the interpretation is,
implication.
it's a matter of course, then that's great. Then the next sentence really is about the issue. The central issue is whether or not the council wants to afford itself the ability to change officers mid-year. All right, so,
As needed or not,
well,
there could be some,
well, I think
Why do you
there's
have
no
the three?
argument about a departure. I
right,
think everybody says, hey, if
but you have
the
a
secretary
three,
leaves. Yeah,
but next to needed, right?
That's the note. That's the way the PDF writes the note. It's 3, what you see, that number 3 refers to item number 3 on the next page, on the flip side of the page.
Oh,
That's how that works in PDF format.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if I hadn't gotten it, I could have written it differently.
Oh, I hadn't even gotten to the next page. Okay, that's fine.
That's okay. So now, whenever you see a box, a number inside of a box, that's referring to notes on the flip side of the page. Okay. So the core issue is, with respect to the second sentence is that we have consensus that if the officer departs, we want to replace. I don't think we need any more language for that issue. Correct? Good.
Well, wait a minute, there was another issue there about a majority or a 2/3 in that section, was there not?
Okay, so for the topic of reorganizing itself needed due to departure of an existing officer, does that have to be majority or? I think that would be a majority vote. It's simple. We just want to get it done, right?
Right.
Secretary leaves, you just want to put another secretary in the seat.
Mhm.
And to echo what Henry said, if it's not otherwise specified, it's a simple majority.
Got it.
So if we all agree on.
So that, I think we're all good with that concept and the committee has direction. So the second idea though, in that sentence is whether or not the council wants to afford itself the ability to make a mid-year change. There's been some debate. How do people feel about the idea of having access to that tool to make a mid-year change or not? So I'll just go ahead and ask, how many people would like to have access to a mid-year change? I'm going to raise my hand.
Access to, pardon me, what was that?
How many people on the council would like the ability to do a mid-year change? Not just the annual assignment, but a mid-year change of organization.
Let me make sure I understand it though. That is for the last section of that
Correct.
sentence. If
Exactly.
requested by a
Yes.
majority or 2/3.
Well, he's not asking that yet.
He's not asking that yet.
Yeah, but there's the idea that we shall establish officers at the beginning of the year, checkbox, right?
Majority.
There's the idea that we shall replace an officer if one departs. Dearly
Majority.
departed, right, have a nice trip. The third idea is whether or not the council wants to be able to change officers mid-year for a different purpose. That's the idea in front of us.
Right.
How many people would like to have access to that tool? How many people feel it's superfluous? So access, I'd like to have access to that tool. Well,
I do.
you cannot.
Oh, sorry.
Access to that tool.
How
to
many
have-
people would like to have the ability to reorganize the council at some time in the year,
But there's-
other than the beginning?
There's a second.
Given
part.
some threshold,
Yeah.
we'll discuss thresholds
Okay,
later.
okay, I want to make sure that that's.
Yes, there's a
Okay,
two-part question.
okay. I'm fine with that. That's, I think that's essential.
And what, was there a vote required to have that or just be automatic?
Do you
He's
want?
getting to that.
It's an option.
Oh,
It is
it's an option, okay.
So the question one more time. Should the council have the option to
Mhm.
reorganize itself at some other time during the year than the beginning of the year?
Point of order.
They,
I believe as a member of this body, even if he's an alternate member, Zach has a right to express an opinion.
Cool. I
If it's
didn't-
not official, though, sure.
Right.
You're
Yeah, I
right.
would agree with that.
Go for it. Thank you for the
Can I just, my one
Absolutely.
stipulation would be that. Because that's a significant motion or point of order, I do feel that it should be a 2/3 consensus to open up that door. I know they're getting to that.
We're getting to
we
that.
won't get to that yet. I jumped in on that too, yeah.
Yeah, it's a two-part question. Apologize if I haven't been clear.
Just like if we're asking my opinion, that's my personal stipulation to, to bring that.
We're getting there.
Very good.
Does that mean you want us to have a 2/3 vote before we ask you for your opinion? Okay, all right.
Everything is best. Dave.
Okay, so question number one. Ought the council have the ability to reorganize itself at some time during the year other than its initial year setup? So how many people would like to have access to that? I would like to have access to that.
I think
It
that's
looks
perfect.
like 1, 2, 3, 4 people. 5. Okay, great. So the direction of the committee is we need a sentence that gives that option. Now, on what basis? should that option be exercised? Should it be exercised on the basis of a simple majority or a 2/3 majority vote?
I would offer the suggestion that to open the discussion, it would be a majority, but it would take 2/3 of
To execute,
majority to execute.
I agree.
I
A
concur.
majority to start the initiation,
Yes,
start the
To
talk.
discuss the reorganization, but 2/3 to
execute.
Oh,
execute
okay,
it.
so there's another two part to that, third part.
Well, actually,
Okay.
Wait, I'm
no.
confused. So it's somebody puts forward a motion that says we should consider reorganizing,
Right.
and then the discussion only happens if that motion carries with a simple majority.
Correct,
That's how I understood, it.
Correct.
Yes.
If it goes down, then there's just no discussion of it at all.
correct.
Can
Correct.
somebody explain why they're bringing that motion?
Well, yes, of course, any one of us who makes a proposal to the council is likely going to provide an explanation for the proposal.
And then people can
tell me-
respond to that, right?
And there's usually quite a bit of discussion, and then there's a motion, and a second, and a vote. So
How is that different than the discussion that would happen after the majority vote to discuss?
Because it would take 2/3 to execute the change.
I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is between saying it's 2/3 to reorganize versus it's a majority to talk about reorganizing and then 2/3 to do it. Like what's the difference between those two scenarios?
The difference is that we are specifying a mechanism to even broach the topic. Right now, this text says very clearly that we shall organize by a particular method. You shall organize at the beginning of the calendar year, and you shall reorganize if somebody leaves. Those are two
Yeah.
methodological statements. We have to be similarly rigorous about the notion of a mid-year or an additional reorganization. What's the trigger? And what is the execution requirement? So I really like the idea that Kevin has put forth that if majority of the council requests a reorganization, that's fine. However, to implement the reorganization requires a 2/3 majority vote.
And I have further clarification on that. Would that motion and simple majority vote on that, would that be to agendize it at the next meeting, or would that be to act on it that night?
In a two-steps situation like this, that looks like 2 nights.
That way the public would be notified of a reorg as well. So Henry, I think it would be a simple majority to put it on the agenda to reorganize at any point in the year other than the first meeting. And then it would take 2/3 vote to execute it.
Okay, I'm still, well, I mean, if we're taking an action, a formal action of this majority vote that would be spelled out in 302, like that in and of itself has to be on the agenda.
Has to be on the what?
That in and of itself has to be on the agenda.
Right,
Like we can't take a formal majority vote to agendize something for the next meeting. I don't think, unless like if we're taking a formal vote, that issue on which we're taking a formal vote ought to be on the agenda to begin with.
Okay, here's another way to get at it then. How about if it's requested by a majority straw poll and approved by a 2/3 majority vote? I'm trying to get
or
around,
consensus, council,
you mean requested by council consensus?
yeah, to have placed on the next agenda.
Okay, requested by council
Are
consensus.
you fine with that, Henry?
Well, consensus, that means
Usually
that
it's
to me
unanimous.
seems vague. A lot of the times, the consensus means, more than just a majority. I mean,
Right,
I don't know. To me, none of this. It doesn't seem that important to me whether it's like to me the key question is it a majority or 2/3 to execute
Yeah,
the reorganization?
that's-
I don't find it that important what the threshold is for opening the discussion because we're just going to talk about whatever we want to talk about.
I think in this third step of 3.02, I'm feeling it should be 2/3 is what I'm thinking.
2/3 to execute?
And just, no, a third step that we all should, it should be, unanimous. It should be, a majority, a 2/3 majority. That it should be so momentous that we all know, hey, we've got to make this change in mid-season, so to say. It's got, we all almost always vote unanimously as it is on a lot of matters. This same matter, if we need a change in the middle of a year, we'll know it, and that should be 2/3, this third part of the equation.
Can I short circuit this real quick? I feel like I have a good sense of where I think everybody said where they stand on this already, except maybe except Dan. I'm not sure where you are on this, Dan, whether you want 2/3 or simple majority.
And I haven't heard from Melissa yet, I don't think on this either, or we haven't.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I know where she is from committee, but you're right. I don't think she's.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she's informed the council of that opinion.
Go ahead, Dan, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
my bad.
In my mind, like on our council agenda, item number 10 for today, we have council members' comments, possible future agenda items. At that point, a council member should be enabled to make a motion that a future agenda item include a reorganization, discussion, and vote. And it could be voted up or down, whether or not it would be on the next meetings or a subsequent meeting's agenda. That seems to be in order, a neat and clean way that meets with our current procedures. And then you go on about the rest of your meeting with that agendized officially, that it will be discussed at a future meeting, whenever the motion says it will be. And then in order to enact the change, I completely agree with Robert, you need a 2/3 majority vote to affect the change.
So the simple way of stating that is this.
I never do a simple way of stating.
I've got one. The council may reorganize itself if requested by a majority of the members, that's your mechanism,
Right.
and approved by a 2/3 majority of the members.
Well done, sir.
I told you I had a simple. We've been doing this for a long time. So
Great.
Henry, if you got that, I think that those are the words that capture. If, I don't know if it's consensus, but it sure is a pile of us.
Will you read it for me one more time, just so I make sure I've got it?
Okay, so we're gonna split the second sentence into two.
Right.
First part, the council may reorganize itself as needed due to departure of an existing officer, period.
We should probably say shall, right?
Okay, fine, go ahead, put shall right there, that's good,
Stronger, yep.
very good. The council shall reorganize itself as needed due to the departure of an existing officer, period. The council may reorganize itself if requested by a majority of the members and approved by a 2/3 majority of the members.
Yep, got it.
Sounds great.
Okay,
So we,
Robert, may I have the?
yeah, Melissa didn't get to speak on this, yes, go.
The council does not need to reorganize when an existing officer departs. The council needs to vote for a new existing officer when an existing officer departs. When the treasurer leaves the council, we don't need to vote for president, vice president, chair, vice chair, and secretary. We just need to vote for the treasurer. We do not need to reorganize. We just need to vote for a new
Yes,
officer.
I think you have a point there.
I
How
agree
do
with that.
we go from there?
And so we're gonna make 3 sentences of this. When we meet as a committee, we can rewrite this sentence so that it says departure of existing officer replaced by vote for
Okay.
officer.
Can the rest be done in committee?
Yep.
From what?
Yeah, I think that's simple
was
enough,
with-
right?
What's that?
Yeah, I think that's simple enough to reword
Okay,
in committee.
so I think we can finalize 3.02 for now as far as our discussion and input and everything else comments goes.
Yep.
Okay,
okay. Kevin, you jumped down to 402. Of 403, I've got something on 402 if I can.
Do we, so everything else about
Actually,
that is
I've got
good, huh?
something on. I've got something on 401. Does anybody
Good.
have anything before 401?
3.05, I had something.
Okay.
That second sentence is kind of, long. I thought if we just struck that second sentence under 3.05. And made a comma and said, provided all members who participated in the initial meeting can attend.
Say that one more time.
Okay, the council may recess to continue a regular or special meeting to a time and place specified in the motion of adjournment, provided all members who participated in the initial meeting can attend.
Robert, I think that's an interesting simplification. A lot of times what happens, unfortunately, is that plans aren't realized. It's typically if you were to continue this meeting to a date certain, you
Yeah.
do that. And everyone would say, hey, based on what I know, I'll be there. But on the date, if you don't get your quorum, what are you gonna do?
Postpone the meeting.
You'd want all the same participants to be there like we are tonight to carry on the process.
I don't disagree with you. You absolutely want everybody there because it's in their heads and you don't want to redo it. But if you show up on that date, something happens and you didn't get the people you needed, what are you gonna do?
Then it gets postponed to a later date.
That's what the second sentence is saying, essentially.
Yeah,
So it's that contingency measures, what's going on.
okay, well, like I say, that's a suggestion of mine and we can just deal with it in committee, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so then back to where you guys were, which was, I think, 4.02,
I think,
Well, I had something
Henry,
on 4.01 first.
4.01, okay, go, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm afraid this is going to be another sort of broad topic. But, what we say here is the chair shall be presiding officer at all meetings of the council and can sit as ex officio on council on any committee, with provisos that not violate the Brown Act. Is that what we think the chair is? Is the chair essentially presiding officer at the meeting, or does the chair have a broader remit? Like, for example, agenda has been, historically the responsibility of chair and vice chair, but realistically also sort of farmed out to administrative secretary. The county council objected to that aspect of the agenda and felt it needed to be vested in a singular officer of the court, lest it become a standing committee. Or sorry, officer of the council, excuse me, lest it become a standing committee. So something like agenda, should that be the role of the chair? Broadly speaking, is the chair just presiding at meetings, or is there a larger role for the chair? I open the floor.
okay. May I comment?
Sure, David.
Henry, I think your observation's right on. There's been a consolidation of power in the chair, which I think is counterproductive. I believe that the chair is the master of proceedings. That's a lot of authority. That the hand on the gavel is a big deal. I don't believe, however, that the chair should have a privilege exceeding that. This council assigns members to committees because they're competent and motivated. They should be allowed to do their work without any interference or overburdened participation. We should not allow the chair to pack the room. That is not necessary, and it is, I think, confounding. So I agree, Henry. My position is that the chair shall be the presiding officer of all meetings of the council. And anything else, any further discussion in that item in that section can be deleted.
Okay, so So you think even this goes too far in terms of the ex officio member of committees?
I don't think.
Does anyone? What was that?
I don't think there's a need for an ex officio member.
So you're suggesting to strike your second sentence on your edits, right?
No, I didn't offer an edit on section 401. Henry brought up the topic.
Okay, but
and I
you
agree
just
with
mentioned
him.
that.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah.
What I recommend is we strike everything after the first sentence.
Okay, that's what I heard.
Robert, can I also add, in the 2010 bylaws under section .401, it read, and I quote, "The chair shall appoint chairs of committees with the approval of a majority of the council members." So that's how 4.01 was written. In the 2010 bylaw, well, actually the 2003 and then amended in 2010. I believe that to be effective, the council chair should not be on any of the committees, but actually serves as an ex officio of all committees. And I think that the committee should be appointed by the base body of the council, and the chair can attend any of the meetings that they so choose, as long as there's not a violation of the public forum.
Okay, so we have a couple of suggestions. on
That's
form.
I would say that matches the current draft.
Yep,
Kevin, the current draft in section 513 about committees talks about how committees are formed, and it
Right.
is essentially it's by the base body. It has kind of two mechanisms. One is council chair with the approval of the council, but also just majority vote of the council is enough on its own. And then has the line in the line that we're just discussing about the chair being an ex officio member. So I think current drafting matches what you just said.
Okay.
The new draft.
Okay, so anything else on 4.01?
Yeah, I mean, I still have a question about whether the agenda should also be the responsibility of the chair.
In this section?
Yeah, whether that should be another thing. Whether so to me, it's just not. I think I definitely think. I mean, I think we all agree. Chair presides at meetings. There's some question about ex officio at committees, and then I would say there's another question of should the chair also have the responsibility for the agenda? Is there anything else that the chair should be doing beyond this? And I'll put in my 2 cents. I think agenda should probably be vested to the extent that the county council thinks it has to be vested in a single officer. I think it should be vested probably in the chair, for lack of a better option. But I'm interested in how others feel on that.
Robert, if I could weigh in, most organizations that I've been involved with, and I know Mary could probably attest to all the organizations she's been involved with, usually the responsibility is of the chair to put the agenda together. A lot of times what a chair will do is send out a draft agenda. If there's any other items that the council would like to add to that, then they send out a final draft based on the 48 hours notice. I think, yeah, we definitely should leave that with the chair, with the ability of council members to weigh in, but as a single body, not have 1 or 2 or 3 people designated as participating in that, but it should be open to everybody if they see an item to add that. But it should be a single officer, and I would lean towards the chair as part of the responsibility to put the agenda out and make sure it gets distributed to all council members.
Well, and via how? Via just the website? Or?
No, I think I will say that we're spoiled with Mary. because Mary sent out the agendas to all the council members. I don't see that being a problem for the chair. The chair has our email addresses that once a initial draft is sent out and then a final version is sent out. We're talking 7 people. I don't think that would constitute a problem. I'll defer to Dave.
No, I'm just asking it because I did not, I figured everybody would go on the website. Who's next? David?
Great idea. So the chair got the gavel and the chair sets the agenda. That's great. Let's make the secretary, though, the engine of logistics. Let's consolidate all those logistics in one place. Because these are really different activities. Secretary currently bears the burden of a lot of kind of administrative handholding, documents going back and forth, receiving mail, getting stuff. So chair presides, chair sets the agenda. The text for that is in the second half of subsection A in section 501. We just changed the word, the secretary is to the chair and strike or their designate. The chair shall prepare an agenda, blah, blah, blah. Then all of that gets furnished to the secretary in compliance with section A, first paragraph. All reports, communication, agenda, and all other matters to be submitted to the council at a regular meeting shall be delivered to the secretary for the secretary to do the logistical legwork through whatever means are at our disposal, postings, the rest of it.
And let me piggyback what David's saying, because I'm kind of looking through all of Article 5. I think it's the chair's responsibility to appoint a designee, not the secretary. And I think right now it reads that the secretary or their designee, and it probably should be the chair.
I have some chain of command edits to that point.
Good idea.
Oh, that's a whole topic. Nobody likes secretary or their designee, myself included, and I wrote it. That's a whole discussion. Let's
What was that?
Let's get through it. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
But let's settle this one first. Let's get the chair put to bed.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Kevin, I agree with you. There's some
Sorry.
administrative.
I jumped ahead.
It's okay. So what do you guys think? So pound the gavel, push the agenda together. Okay?
Yeah.
Center, that's the chair's job. And that, if you look at those, again, that second paragraph under 501A, and you swap the names of the roles, the chair, strike or their designate, shall prepare an agenda. Such matters that it's a swap of text.
Yeah, we can cover that, the
Does that work for you?
nitty gritty of that in committee.
Okay.
If we know, broadly speaking, we're saying chair presides at meetings, does the agenda, and then I think the last question on the chair is ex officio committees. It sounds like, Dave, you have strong feelings, should not be ex officio committees. Sounds like Kevin, you think should be ex officio committees.
That's fine. I'll yield. That's fine. I'll yield.
Okay. So, chair has essentially 3 responsibilities, which we'll list out in that section, which are preside at meetings, be ex officio on committees, and set agendas.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, 4.01 done for now.
Yay.
Great.
Okay. I've got some comments under 402.
That's true.
Okay. Let's see what's going on here.
We got 8:01 time wise, by the way, folks.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry. This one here, it's a simple administrative matter. There's any one of us may have to recuse ourselves for one reason or another. Once we were recused, however, we're still sitting here. We're not absent. We're actually present, but incompetent. How's that for a word? It's operation. So for this one, the vice chair, what I recommend is that vice chair shall blah, 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 preside over the council when the chair is absent or subject to recusal. just because any one of us can. It's a simple
Mhm.
kind of. And anyway, if you guys are cool with that, that's just what it is. It's in my edit.
Absent or subject to recusal, okay.
Is that, okay, thank you. I'm done.
Anybody else on 4.02?
No.
Yeah, Dan, sorry.
Earlier this year, we had a meeting canceled on less than a day's notice due to the inability of the chair to attend. That should not have happened. And that's kind of been bugging me ever since. The vice chair should have taken over. We should have gone about our business. I just want to state that it's grit in my craw.
Mhm. That was
And I think that's what 4.2 is intended to do.
correct.
And the other thing that when we get to secretary, again, we'll make sure that the mechanism for executing a meeting is that mechanism is there. in
Yeah, we're
secretary.
not
But
there
if
yet.
somebody's gonna crank on.
Yeah.
Okay, now, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, that raises the question in my mind, are we actually required to meet every month? Or
No,
we're not.
could we decide to take a vacation month? Let's say there's very little happening. It's August or September, whatever. And we don't meet, we decide we're not gonna meet.
Oh, we're not required
We're not required.
to be,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Well, we're required to meet at least quarterly, but that's the extent of it.
Yeah, we have X numbers of meetings.
Usually that action to take a pass,
Mm-hmm.
that's usually a discussion right before. Usually there's an item on an agenda that identifies the date of the next meeting date.
Okay, so we would have to actually decide that at a meeting.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
because the public expectations are based on this published thing.
Or I suspect with 72 hours notice in case of some kind of an emergency.
If there's an emergency.
And if we can't do it within 72 hours, we gotta soldier on.
Right, I mean, an
So we
example
show-
of that would be like a power outage. There's no power in the building.
Yeah, that's an emergency.
And how can we get the word out and
We can't,
conduct a meeting?
yeah, there are emergencies. Everybody recognizes that.
Sometimes vacation emergencies too, but they don't rise to that finding.
So this is actually, this is all covered. I mean, we've passed by the section that covers this, which is section 303, which is regular meetings shall be scheduled for the first Thursday of every month unless otherwise specified by the chair. Currently says and administrative secretary, which is also an oversight. I think it should just say the chair, due to holidays or other unusual considerations. Special meetings may be called at any time by the chair or a majority of the council. Before session meeting. Yeah, so basically we need to do it unless the otherwise specified by the chair. I don't think there's any notice requirement for canceling a meeting. There's notice requirement for having a meeting. But I think you could cancel really at any time. And I mean, realistically, if we show up and there's only 3 people, the meeting doesn't happen because there's no quorum. So inherently, there's always that possibility. Like you could not have a quorum. So we do, this is spelled out, and in the current spelling out, it's the chair can cancel. There's no restrictions on cancellation of a meeting, except in that we're required to meet at least quarterly by policy 51. So if we want to change that, we should discuss that for 303.
Okay. Anyone want to go back to 3.03 and make any changes?
No, this has been
No.
through council's review. I think we need,
This has been through our review.
no, the county council's seen this. I think.
Right. Third line up where it says hours before the time of such meeting, it could say regular or special meeting. If one wanted to specify it more, but we can do that in committee.
You know, if this, my recommendation, Robert, given that you guys have a bunch of other stuff to do too, is if council looked at this, we can assume they did. This
Yes, they did.
is right out of the legal book.
Right,
I'd leave it alone.
leave it alone.
Great.
Okay, on to 4.03, treasurer. Who would like to start on this? Our treasurer?
I've already got the change from Kevin to operation of the council. Was there anything else for anybody for 403?
Yes, Mary.
On the next page, the last two sentences, you should kind of reformat the spacing on the
Yeah.
last words, starting and preparing. The last like 6 or 7 words, there's a lot of spacing.
Right.
Reformat that spacing. I don't know why I think like that.
Preparing and.
Yeah,
and financial, yeah.
Yeah,
It says.
yeah,
it just needs to be reformatted, that's all.
Okay.
yeah. A quick comment on that. I think what happened here is the county council's office got a PDF and then scanned that into a Word document and then started editing. That's how things like council came up. That was discussed previously. And that left all kinds of weird formatting. And I just didn't want to deal with it until we kind of knew what we wanted to say. But part of the next iteration is going to be reformatting. There's weird indentation. There's a bunch of random garbage that needs to get cleaned up. I just didn't want to do it until we actually had the bones of the thing. Yeah, the spacing's all weird.
Is the first sentence in 4.03, is that needed or is that superfluous?
Other than switching the word committee to council. I think it's really clear about where the money comes from. You know, we don't have any offshore accounts. Well, we might, but anyway, I think it's important to leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think one thing that's I think one thing that's worth calling out, and I had a meeting with planning and building today, in which they wanted to make it crystal clear that we do not pay for anything; they pay for stuff. It's not just that it's their money; it's that like there's no mechanism by which GMAC or any MAC pays for something. GMAC asks planning and building services to pay for something. So I do think that's actually pretty clear in this language of the treasurer, that recording the council's general ledger all bills to be paid and then submitting them in a timely manner to the Mendocino County Department of Planning and Building for approval and payment. So for example, like even the contract with Coast Life Support, we are not supposed to, like we are supposed to ask Planning and Building Services to set up that contract with Coast Life Support. We are not supposed to do it ourselves. All that stuff is supposed to go through Planning and Building Services. So I actually think the text of the bylaws is reasonably clear, but I'm not sure that it matches what we've been doing.
So Dan, by me signing that agreement that day when we met with the lady here, the contract for getting this place as a replacement from the community center, that was probably not okay.
No, correct.
But we forwarded it to the county for, I mean, we advised them, we recommended that they acknowledge this, that we needed a place. But yeah.
Nobody's complaining about what's already happened.
Right, I understand. But
It's all about how we operate going forward.
Yeah, I
They
understand.
issued a check, but that apparently is not definitive.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, they
I'll
have,
discuss with people at the county building and planning appropriately, because we've got other things. I was just handed an invoice from Zoom One Pro that we pay in. No, you paid this. You're asking for repayment?
Exactly.
Okay, you paid this. That wasn't clear, because this was due in October, and I wondered about that.
I already did it.
So
Okay, I will submit this, with the understanding that you don't have a contract with the county either.
I think that's,
it has become-
acceptable to, if any one of us has to pay for something,
Yeah,
we just submit
Yeah. So
receipt and we get
The-
reimbursed. And
right. Is that? what
yeah, I don't think that's how
MCN
it's supposed to
also?
work anymore.
Is that what occurred with the MCN? I received a request for payment from via Robert for MCN.
Yeah, I'm not paying for MCM.
Okay,
No,
county is supposed to, does county have a contract with MCM? These are the kind of things I gotta figure out,
right.
just so you know.
Yeah.
County's paid MCM for I don't know how many years. and
They paid you for how-
They have a contract with them, don't have,
Okay,
but they do pay.
That's not the subject of this
Robert,
discussion.
yeah,
Okay, one by one.
okay.
Kevin,
Policy 51 under item G says the MAC shall not be empowered to enter into any contracts or otherwise incur any indebtedness in the name of or on behalf of itself, the board, the county of Mendocino, or any officer, agent, or employee thereof. So by GMAC reimbursing Don for entering into a contract with Zoom, is that in violation of that policy? Because what you're doing is you're entering into a contract, you're paying it, and then asking the county to reimburse you for funds on a contractual agreement that you entered into.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would have to question that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure we can do that.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate question, but obviously this has been done before. Tom started this with Zoom. And of course, he left, handed it to me, and then I had to pay Zoom, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to use the service.
And I think that's what we're trying to do now is we're trying to
straighten these
clean
out.
things up. So
Okay.
we can be in compliance with
Right.
the county policy.
Sure.
Okay, Henry,
Yeah, so I mean, again, I just met with Planning and Building Services today. They're not like up in arms about the things that have happened. It's all the Macs have been making this mistake. They're just now like all this stuff got transferred onto Planning and Building Services from the auditor's office because of the things that are going on with the auditor's office and all that madness, which we don't need to weigh in on. So they're reviewing all this stuff and they're being like, a lot of this stuff was not actually handled the way it was supposed to be handled, and they're just trying to clean it up. So yeah, we need to take any contracts that we are currently in, any things that we're paying for, anything involving money, like that all needs to be executed by Planning and Building Services. We are asking them to do it. We still have a budget that is, allotted in there. So it's not going to be hard to get them to pay it. It's just they have to be the ones to do the execution. Nobody needs to worry about, oh, well, should I have done this or should I not? Everybody's doing it wrong. They just want to get it done right in the future. So that's like, we just need to transfer all these things as we can.
okay.
So I think that's,
David,
Thank you, Henry. So for the purposes of moving forward.
Yeah.
All of us have had a chance to look at the text in section 403. Does that text, is it adequate for the purposes of doing the money stuff that we need to do? We're not looking back. We're saying, does this describe what Dan has to do and assign appropriate responsibilities and control for situations that we know are coming up, the Zoom payment, this payment, that reimbursements, whatever, without over talking it? Does this work? From my eye, 403 is adequate. It does the job. Dan's he is the point of contact. This gives him authority to be the sole contact and interlocutor with our money bags at the county.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to say here about
I
403?
don't think so, no.
Dylan?
Nope.
Okay, great. I had some stuff for 404, a lot of which is solved by Kevin's recommendation about adding secretary to the list of officers. So it becomes a lot simpler if the secretary is an officer. My commentary reflects that. I'm going to read the last paragraph of it. If the secretary is in the list of officers, then I think all we need to do here, if we are committed to the notion of a designee, we need to add a chain of command sentence or two. Alternatively, if you strike individually or through a designee, the secretary could have imputed authority to manage a designee without unpacking that mechanism entirely in this bylaws. But if we feel like we need to be more clear, here's some text, and I'll just read it, and you guys can kind of let it roll around.
Sorry, can I ask for clarification on the last statement last
Yes,
sentence?
yes.
So do you think if we lay all this out as the responsibility of the secretary, cut out all the or designee language, which again, nobody likes, even me, and I wrote it. Do you feel that then there is the option for somebody other than the secretary to actually execute this stuff?
Yes, I believe so. It's sub rosa. It can be sub rosa. It doesn't have to be in front. Essentially,
Okay.
this bylaw can economically deal with the responsibilities of the officers and the council and how we conduct our business generally. It does not necessarily have to carry the freight of administering a county employee. Hiring, disciplining, firing, directing, paying, all that stuff. The county's told us clearly that's not our job.
Yeah.
However, if we're lucky, we can have a very helpful relationship with the county who would furnish a person assigned to us, and that person should then be directed according to what that employer tells them to do. So somebody at planning and building is going to turn to that employee and say, you will follow the direction of the secretary for XYZ. You may respond to direction from the chair. You may do this, you may do that, but it's up to the employer to issue direction to the employee. That's another way to do it. The bylaws doesn't have to unpack the employee topic. We clearly have no authority to go there. So I suggest we consider the possibility of being really clean and focusing on the appointees by the Board of Supervisors and what we're supposed to do, how we conduct our business, and who we do it for and with, rather than including a designee or an employee. That's one approach. It's different than my comments, which were written in a different context.
Yeah, I would just I would say I would infinitely, again, as the person who wrote this awful vagueness. The reason for it was that it was clear that this stuff needed to be vested. These roles and responsibilities needed to be vested in an officer of the council. That was clear from the county council's adjustments. But I did not want to eliminate the possibility of having, the continued operation of Mary or some other instantiation of administrative secretary actually executing on a lot of this. I just didn't want to foreclose on that, even though we can't mandate that in our bylaws. So this was me trying to thread that needle of saying, well, we can't mandate the existence of that person, but I also don't want to eliminate the possibility. So that's what the whole nonsense about secretary or their designee is. If we can just say the secretary and then under the hood that can be executed by somebody who is paid by the county, I think that's infinitely preferable.
Yeah, that's
Dan?
That's kind of what I was thinking is if you leave through a designee in there, that would enable, say, one of the members of this council is a business person who has a secretary in their office whose job description includes something like other duties as assigned and was not going to be billing the council or the county for the work they're done effectively, or they find a volunteer to do it who's willing to take on that just because they think that GMAC is a good cause or whatever. If you leave designee in there, you open up those opportunities to accomplish this in another way that does not infringe upon the county, encumber them in any way, or require them to provide benefits or pay or anything.
Yeah, there's also the perspective of and I look back at a time, having been on the council for 20 years now, where there's been secretaries in the past, council secretaries that were never able or willing to do all this work that is needed for GMAC in this role. That is kind of how, prior to even Mary getting hired by the county, that that there was a paid secretary to do a lot of this work. And so I think that the verbiage that Henry came up with, like Henry said, and like you've just said, Dan, was kind of, it opens up a whole spiel of things that are possible. There have been times where a council secretary didn't do this work, and that's how it slowly evolved, that a administrative secretary became the norm. Whether it was right or not, that's how it became. Kevin.
If I could shed some light on this, when resolution 9176 was adopted by the Board of Supervisors, it really only included fiscal year 90, 91, and then 92, 93. At that time, there was no money from the county at all to pay for the position, and it was at the expense of the council, and they had to go out and do fundraising to generate revenue to pay for a person to fill that position. And they suggested it would be about $2,500. The position at the time was a recording secretary, and that recording secretary answered to the council secretary. So the council secretary was the supervisor of that person, and in the absence of the council secretary, then the recording secretary could sit in that place. But everything revolved around the council's appointed secretary as part of the membership. It was never a paid position. When in 2003, when the contract was let or the discussion to hire an employee, the meeting that discussion took place, 2 people on the council interviewed the candidates. But when they made a decision on that, they did not have a quorum at that meeting. So no official action was able to be taken that night. There was no formal action. There are no minutes to reflect the council approving the hiring. And as all of us have seen through all of our lives, that even though an agreement is done through a verbal handshake, everything is followed up with a written agreement and contract. And there was no written agreement or contract signed at all with the with the council's approval, and it was not forwarded to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So in essence, the position never existed other than a verbal handshake and working through the figuring that the council was acting in good faith.
That's right.
To pay them.
Kevin, this feels very far afield of our bylaws conversation and maybe more appropriate for closed session later.
Well, this is in regards to the secretary on whether or not there is a designee, and could a designee be someone on the outside who is not a council member? And that's what I'm trying to address now, is that I don't believe that our bylaws can reflect anyone outside of the council membership to serve in any capacity.
Certainly cannot require it. That's very clear. The question is, can it allow for it?
I don't believe county council says we can. The board established GMAC and other MACs directly. They appoint each of us, we sit at their pleasure. They didn't give us authority to encumber financially, take on permit liability, or retain staff or contractors. We don't have any of that. Our bylaws
Yeah, we definitely can't mandate any of that.
should focus on us. I agree. When we take an excursion in a different direction, even if it's historic, that doesn't resolve our challenges going forward.
Yet you got to prepare for any possibility out there happening, that a secretary, a council secretary may not always do these duties that we're going to assign as the secretary position in our bylaws. We've had, if you look at the exact wording from our resolution, it says the board, meaning a board of supervisors, will consider funding for the municipal advisory council during future budget hearings. They've had many budget hearings over the years. They've always budgeted for the GMAC.
Right?
Funds in the amount of 2,500 are anticipated to be raised by the community. You were right on that. That, I don't know what it was bake sales. It was all sorts of things to get the GMAC even started back in 1991. I recall that. But subsequent to that, there has always been a budget by the council, by the board of supervisors, and by the county to this day. They were different amounts over the years. 333.33 was the amount one for a time. 2,500 from the get-go was what was anticipated, or is what has happened many of the years. We've got up to 5,000, but I think that they plan on continuing to budget the max in the future. And so 2,500, and this gets maybe into our.
And actually, we're budgeted $5,000.
At the moment, right?
Yeah. I would, to speed this up, and I agree with Henry, we don't want to take this in a different direction. Policy 51 was actually introduced to our council in 2016. So this is not something new. It's something that was addressed by the council at that time. So I think that our due diligence right now is to make sure that these bylaws are in compliance and up to date with the role of the secretary, the role of the council, and not look at other mechanisms to introduce other options to it. I think we have to operate under these guidelines specifically.
Can I operationalize what you just said? Here's some specific word changes. Would that be okay? Okay.
Sorry, before you say that, just Don, I've lost the council view. I don't know if you can fix that, but sure, you can continue. We don't need to wait for that, but.
Okay, so I'm gonna offer it like I did before, just some things for us to specific changes that will operationalize, I believe, this discussion in the context of the current draft. So I'm gonna just read and can let it roll around between your eyeballs as I do it. So starting section 4.04. Secretary shall have the following duties and responsibilities, parent, and may be assisted by staff or contractors, comma, if assigned by Mendocino County Planning and Building Services, close parent, colon. Okay.
Sorry, may be assisted by.
May be assisted by staff or contractors if assigned by Mendocino County Planning and Building Services.
Great.
Right, because that was what would have to happen, yes.
Okay, and so in those few words deal with chain of command. Okay, we cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. I believe we should strike number 1, routine clerical administrative work. I don't think it needs to be said. Let's just simplify it. So item number 2 becomes item number 1. We keep number 2 as written, 3 as written, 4 as written, 5 would be changed to read prepare council minutes for regular and special meetings, period. We don't need to specify means and methods using recording devices and notes. That is superfluous and it puts us in a straitjacket. I would recommend we keep everything else in item 5. Keep 6, keep 7, keep 8, keep 9, keep 10, and delete 11. Because we will no longer have expenses except those otherwise handled directly by the treasurer.
Right, and that's implied by the treasurer's responsibilities anyway.
Correct.
Right.
So that's the kind of the operational recommendation to capture where we've been. Does that make sense to people or any questions about what I had in mind?
Yes.
So Henry, have you got that?
I've got all of that, and also incidentally like all of that. Thank you.
Groovy. Okay, Robert, your pleasure.
Great, okay, so we've gone through all the officer positions,
Well, actually, sorry, one other comment on that. So, and then I think pursuant to that, we remove anywhere that it says secretary or their designee. We're just removing or their designee. It's just going to say
Correct.
secretary.
Correct.
And then it's assumed based on the fact that they may be assisted in this, that anybody they say can do it, can do it.
okay, so we're on to conduct of meetings, section 5.01.
May I offer a one-word change?
On your edit, on your suggested edits?
Well, it's a new one based on our conversation today.
Okay,
So under 501, presentation and posting of agendas.
yes,
So it would, here's where the change would occur. All reports, comma, communications, comma, agenda, comma, or other matters to be submitted to the council at a regular meeting shall be delivered to the secretary, blah, blah, blah. So that agenda, which is developed by the chair, has to go to the secretary to process. Okay? Does that make sense?
mhm,
Okay.
So
That's
all
it.
reports, communications, agendas, or other matters to be submitted to the council at a regular meeting?
Yes, yes. Yeah, just add the word agendas, comma.
Shall be
that.
delivered to the,
to
okay,
the secretary. Oh, and strike or their designee. Sorry, I missed that.
okay, but didn't we just change that to chair
Well, what
in
happened
the
is
previous
that,
conversation?
yeah, the chair is going to do the agenda, okay? That's the second
Right.
paragraph in section 501. We've moved that whole paragraph up to section 401. So the chair bangs the gavel. The chair is ex officio.
Uh-huh,
Chair develops the agenda in the manner described in the second paragraph of section 501.
great,
That whole paragraph just goes up to 501.
okay,
Okay, and then that agenda, when it's developed by the chair, goes to the secretary for process,
great.
along with all the other agenda packet material.
done.
Yeah, I'm adding this as a comment to myself because that'll require a little bit more than I can do while we're talking, but
I can
I
share my
certainly have no
notes with
objection to
you
that.
whenever you want.
Did you have something done?
Well, now that I think about it, no, actually, what I was concerned about here is the fact that in reality, the agenda often is prepared or finished at the last minute and then submitted to me for posting. So I was concerned about the 7 working days, but actually that's not necessarily just the agenda at
Yeah,
all.
it's everything. We probably need to be a bit more hygienic in compliance with the law. Yeah, we're, you know, we need to be better.
Should that maybe be, okay, so that means within 7 working days, that agenda's gotta be done.
Yeah, and
Or,
you know what? That's the best you can do.
Mhm.
That's the best the chair can do. That's what goes to the secretary. And if we have to make agenda changes,
We do
you're
that at
gonna
the
have
meeting.
to at the meeting.
okay,
Robert, can I make a suggestion real quick because of our time here?
yeah.
My suggestion to the council out of respect to Mary. That we set a time frame, and if we say 20 till 9, that we table the rest of the agenda and go into closed session, but and then look at rescheduling another meeting to go through the rest of the bylaws. But I think we really need, out of respect to Mary and the direction from the county, we probably should discuss that this evening. Just my thought.
I
Okay,
agree.
I would tend to agree too. We only have the place till 9 also, so we got 8:36 at the moment, and then this does get into a lot of detail, so. Do we want to make a motion to that, or do we just do it? Let's,
You want to crank for 5 more minutes, see how far we get?
Yeah, let's go till 20 till, so let's,
but.
but I would make a motion that we adjourn to closed session at 8:40.
4 more minutes, okay, it's
Second.
Second. Okay,
And you could just say all in favor, say aye, and we don't have to do that.
we don't have to do that. You all in favor of that?
Aye.
Finley?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Got
So-
Speeds it up.
12 minutes.
4 more minutes. I'll be watching the clock here and continue with 5.01 A and B. Okay, so the secretary has the final product. And do we want to change the 7 working days to something other than 7, maybe 5 or something? 7 days is a lot.
I think if you change that, because usually that, when you think that, you're thinking calendar days. So I would say 5 working days
5
is
working days.
typical,
Okay,
rather than seven working days, go
Yeah,
5
great.
working days.
I go 7
I agree
calendar,
with that.
7 calendar days.
Yeah, I would even say,
That way you don't have to calculate.
Yeah,
7 calendar days. Okay, that's a good change. Everybody,
One day difference.
what's that?
It only winds up being a 1 day difference.
well, it depends if it's holidays and whatever. What's a working day is a separate question. 7 calendar days, great.
Okay. Anything else on A?
what number are we on?
So
Still on
on
5.0?
5.01, 5.01 A, I said if is there anything else on that? Otherwise we go to
No.
5.01 B.
No,
Public input, non-agenda items, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, I would just say we operate with a 3-minute limit on public input. That's actually not spelled out here. I kind of feel like it should be,
Yeah.
or some time limit.
What did it
Anybody
say?
object to that? We can handle it in committee. We don't need to write language right now, but
I think that's a good idea.
3 minutes unrealistic for public
any
input.
objection?
Well, I just.
That's kind of a normal thing, yeah, but we've been really lax with that over the years, and there should be a proviso in there that you can extend it if you want.
Deal is.
3-minute limit, which can be extended by the chair.
Non-agenda items.
Sure.
yeah,
That makes sense.
Well, no, you think you go, my suggestion, 3 minutes for non-agenda items. Okay, let's not have somebody just coming in and capturing the meeting.
Yeah,
Not for-
yeah, that's true.
You have
Okay,
accorded
great.
public a great deal of flexibility when they're commenting on a project. I think that
Exactly,
Makes
that's-
sense too.
I didn't.
It's a little different.
Great.
Non-agenda items,
Okay.
that's what I missed.
Strict 3 minutes on non-agenda.
Okay, so 3
Perfect.
minutes has to be put in there. In fact, I have it in there
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
So, anything else?
You mean anywhere else in subsequent
Yeah.
sections? I have a recommendation for section 601.
601, okay, but what about 5.02?
I've got 2 corrections there. On item B, the secretary, where it says the secretary, it should be or their designee, not and their designee.
Well, we're gonna strike all that, I think.
And the other one would be, the secretary, 3 lines up from the bottom, the secretary or their designee shall share the correspondence, not may.
I had will, okay, shall is stronger.
Good. Yeah.
So we're striking designate stuff consistently and then is and shall.
It's 9:40.
You're right, okay, 8:40.
8:40.
Thank you.
If it's 9:40, we're late.
We're real late.
Okay, so can we make a motion to adjourn this part of the agenda for the time being to a later date?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to closed session and that we reschedule at the convenience of the council to re-agendize and discuss the bylaws.
Second.
Okay, Finley, Bob,
Yes.
Hess,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
one of these last names, Mayor, Evans,
Aye.
Mayor, aye.
Mayor, aye.
Youngling, aye, okay. So now we need to make a motion to go into closed
I
session.
think that was part of the.
That was part of it, you said,
That we-
right? Okay.
Yeah. And so, Don, I think you'll need to probably lock the Zoom if we want me to be part of it, which I would like to be. So I think you'll need to stop recording and lock the Zoom in order for this to be a closed session.
And I think
And we need
we need to
to ask,
excuse you, Mary, for a
Mary.
short time. We have to excuse you for a short time.
Oh, and that's one other thing too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, that if there's any action taken during the closed session, we have to re-adjourn. And we have to report the actions this evening.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
So you have no questions for me?
does anybody have any questions of Mary?
I only have a comment, and I would like to thank Mary for her due diligence and correspondence with us. Taking into account the historical nature of her position and how valuable she has been through the years to the GMAC organization, and yeah, I would like to just publicly thank her for that.
I would add patience to that.
Yeah.
I would add stentorian volume to that.
Specific questions, any for Mary? Melissa, Mary, specific questions?
I don't have any specific questions for this closed session, but Mary, I would like to talk to you again. I spoke with Planning and Building Services today, and I'd love to talk to you, I guess maybe tomorrow if you have time, and we can run through some of the stuff I was talking with them about.
Okay. So with that, let's,
2-minute adjournment, well.
that would be a nice idea, yeah.